Hey everyone, Robert Fischer here with Keller Williams Realty. I'm here with my friend Matt Reisinger.
Robert, thanks for having me.
And I wanted to ask Matt a couple questions. When you're building on a lot, like a beautiful lot like this, what do we need to consider? So whether it's this lot or whether it's another lot, what do we need to consider?
This could be a 4-hour answer, Robert, so I'll try and condense it a little bit. There's a bunch of things you need to think about when you're buying a lot. And of course, a property like this, Lake Austin, we've got a few more things we need to think about. But first off, what can be built on that property? This lot's massive. This is like 2 acres.
Over 2 acres.
So we've got a lot less concern about what can be built. When we think about tighter lots, we got to think about what kind of tree coverage do we have, what kind of heritage trees do we have, what neighborhood covenants and restrictions, what's the permitting process going to look like, what's it going to look like to get a boat dock permit, that sort of thing. And typically the bigger the lot and the fewer the trees, the easier it is to do something with that property. When you're thinking about in-town properties that have heavy tree cover, more restrictions, HOAs, things like that, there's a lot more due diligence that needs done. And something to consider is if you're thinking about buying a lot, there's a lot of people that will do due diligence for you as a fee, as a service, and help you guide, like, hey, here's what could be built here, and here's some of the restrictions. And I suspect Robert can guide you to that path. There's both architects and builders that will provide that service for you.
And we've seen our clients, they do it sometimes, they do it before they go under contract on the lot, and we see that they do it during the due diligence or the option period on the lot as well. So that gives you that time to kind of have the security of knowing that you have the lot secure, but you still get to do all your due diligence.
Yeah, you got to spend that time figuring out what can and can't be done on this property before you jump in. I don't know how many people I know over the years that have bought something, including myself in the past, where I thought, oh, I'm sure I can get by that regulation for whatever it is, and you find out, oh my gosh, that variance is crazy hard to get. And is not worth the time and effort. I remember a property I bought right before the recession and got tied up for years on it, and then it wasn't worth the same, and I couldn't develop it like I thought. It just made me realize, gosh, I need to be really thoughtful about what restrictions are in place today. Is there something in the pipeline that could change this in the near future? And don't expect to get a variance on a project.
Quick question, a lot like this, do you think people kind of find a floor plan first? Or do you think that they find the lot and then they build the floor plan around it?
I think it's usually the opposite. Most of the time, I think people find a piece of property and then figure out how to make that house really work for the property. Although, 2 acres is not a small property, you could probably make a lot of things work. And I think my understanding is that this property actually has architecture for it already, which could be a really big win. That process can take a long time. So if you've got a house that a lot you're considering that has architecture already designed by an architect, that can save months and months and literally tens, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars.
That's awesome. What else should people consider?
I mean, the big thing you need to consider is cost, right? There's a bunch of paths to get to where you're going, but you need to remember when you're building something new, you can't look at resales as a guide. The house next door sold for X amount of dollars per square foot, so I should be able to build over here for that. Throw that out the window. That's not right. I mean, if you're looking at used cars, a 30-year-old car that's been used for 30 years on a daily basis doesn't equate to the same purchase price as a new car. And so we need to remember that new construction is totally a different metric on cost per square foot. And Robert, in Austin today, as we're recording this, 2024, I mean, size actually helps you on cost per square foot. So a bigger house can be less per square foot, but it's really hard to build much under $500 per covered square foot. And my typical projects go for like 6 to 8 as kind of a typical range. We've built for more than that. And it's really hard to go much less than that. And remember, that's covered square foot too. So that's going to include your porches and your garages, which is really the same square footage. They just don't have the heating and cooling in them. And heating and cooling is, 5% of the cost of new construction. So don't expect those spaces to be free. You got to think about that cost of construction and kind of have an all in. And again, a lot of builders and even some architects can give you a pretty good idea of, hey, for what you're thinking about doing, here's where the cost range that I would expect that. And that's a free service my company offers, like a lot of builders do.
And I've heard a lot of my clients say this, like if they're going to build a custom home, they kind of want what they want. I mean, they don't want to overpay, but in the other sense, they don't want to underpay either.
Sure.
They might want a Matt Reisinger build, and they want a certain design, and so they're coming out and saying, Robert, if I'm buying an investment property, this is what I'm looking for. But if this is going to be my home and this is going to be someplace I'm going to enjoy, they're really kind of pulling out all the stops. So that's the difference.
I mean, we find that more and more, Robert, that people, even if they buy something, used on the marketplace, they want to totally transform it and gut it and change it. Austin, Texas is a market that's very much, people want what they want. They're willing to pay for what they want. And I think this market really values design and also values well-built construction. Honestly, I think this is one of the best places to build in America. As I travel all over the country, there's some fabulous builders, some amazing architecture here in Austin. So this is a great place to build.
Absolutely. What about the lake? People are always putting stuff out on the lake.
That's where, as these amazing boats are coming by. I wish we were on one of those boats today, Robert. It'd be pretty nice.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing about, I think, Austin that's so unique, Robert, is these properties, they're expensive on the water, but they're not making any new ones. There's no new water going down, and so they really hold their value. You build a really well-built house with good design, it's going to absolutely hold its value. And over the years, the houses that we've built on the lake have resold for a lot more than people paid me to build them for. So as I look back on those, I think, gosh, I really should have built one on the lake instead of the neighborhood I built on. These houses, when they're well built, good architecture, I mean, they absolutely, people gobble them up and they resell quickly.
A true custom home will get the value out of the extras versus, what you would say your, I don't want to say cookie cutter, but your standard homes that are going across. When you put these upgrades into them, it makes a difference.
It does, and when you hire a really good architect and a really good builder, or a builder who does design build, appraisals are a little different. You're not necessarily appraised by your neighbors or the neighborhood you're in. Appraisers will look at other homes by that same builder that have resold, other homes by that same architect that have resold. So you get put in a different tier. And I mean, this is not an inexpensive lot here on the water, but you're not going to use a house in the upper part of the neighborhood as a comparable, right? You're going to look at other houses on the water up and down that would compare. So, the values are there.
Absolutely. What about boat docks? I've seen them done differently. I've seen them done where they match the house. I've seen them look completely different. Do you see a preference? Do you see?
Here in Austin, that's such a lifestyle choice.
Yep.
And, I think it's interesting to see how people tend to do boat docks that are multi-generational. They think about, a lot of my owners that are in their 40s, 50s, 60s, they're thinking about either future grandchildren, their current teenagers. They want to make sure they've got jet ski space, they've got some type of a power boat where they can ski, they can do all the sports on, but they're also thinking, I might want to fish, I might want a pontoon. So what I'm seeing these days is people are trying to get 3-4 spaces out of a boat dock. They're going to have maybe 2 boats and typically 2 or 3 jet skis on just about every project we do.
Absolutely. What about the slope here? You always see almost everything on Lake Austin has a slope, which is beautiful, and why you get these amazing views.
Pretty
but
awesome.
should I be worried about that?
No, I mean, remember, this is, for those who don't know, this is a constant level lake. We're below the Mansfield Dam here. Every once in a while, we'll drop the lake level so people can do dock work. But really, this level doesn't change by more than a couple of inches. And that's a huge benefit to Lake Austin compared to Lake Travis. I got one of the guys who works for me built a house on Lake Travis a couple years ago, and in the time that he's owned it, I mean, that lake has gone up tens of feet, and he's adjusting his dock and doing all those things. He's got a funicular to get down to, and you think about this house that has a little gentle slope to the dock. You're always going to be able to walk to the dock. There's no changes. I mean, that's why people pay a premium for Lake Austin.
That's awesome. Well, anything else I should have asked that I didn't?
There's a lot to think about. The last thing I think I would leave you with, Robert, or people that are thinking about building, there's a lot of routes you can get to a well-built, well-designed custom home that really fits your needs. I would explore several of those routes. I always think of that process as a bit of a dating process, right? You probably went out on a few different dates before you decided who you wanted to marry. And so I think it's good for people to have conversations with several folks. You could go down the architect route where you hire an architect first, and a lot of times architects will have several builders they work with and can recommend. There's design build firms. My company does design build, and then there's firms that do strictly general contracting. That's what I used to do, where we would work with architects, and we still do. And so you can come to a builder first and find out, hey, what architects do you really like to work with? So there's a bunch of ways you can get to that end goal. But I think it's really wise for people to have multiple conversations and meet multiple people so they can really feel like, hey, who really understood me? Who was a good listener? Who did I feel like would get my needs? And ultimately, the huge thing that people want to know is, who can I trust with my money, right? Who do I really feel like I'm going to be putting a lot of faith in them? I need to make sure this is a team that I feel good taking me to my dream.
My clients that are going through this custom build phase, that's exactly what they're asking. Who's listening to me and who can I trust? And that's a big deal. So.
That's huge.
Awesome.
For sure. Robert, thanks for having me out to this gorgeous property.
Thank you so much.
All right, guys, good luck out there.